Yeah, I'll control the slides.
Okay.
All right, we should be good.
Okay.
You can start whenever, Daniel.
Okay. So when we think about leadership, it's easy to imagine titles, authority, and decision making. But the truth is, leadership is far more personal and nuanced. After listening to 12 leaders from very different fields, sales, marketing, education, banking, manufacture, engineering, we were struck by three powerful themes. So, from my interviews, first from Joe, a branch manager in sales, learned the importance of empathy and strategy. Leadership isn't just about checking boxes or giving directions, it's about understanding people. Without empathy, leaders risk seeming robotic or transactional. Something as simple as waiting a day to share tough news with somebody already having a bad day can build trust over time. Alongside empathy, Joe emphasized strategy. A clear plan acts as a roadmap, aligning day-to-day tasks with bigger mission. Together, empathy and strategy allows leaders to connect with people while still moving the organization forward with clarity and purpose. From Tammy, a manager with experience in marketing, education, and healthcare. The focus was on respect and group norms. The golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, isn't just cliche. It's a foundation of trust. When correcting someone, respect preserves dignity and makes feedback more effective. Tammy also stressed the power of inclusion. When employees help shape policy and culture, they share agreements that strengthen commitment and create healthier, more resilient teams. Finally, Jason, a department head and teacher, highlighted the delicate balance between meeting people where they are and upholding standards. Leaders often inherit teams with varying skills and abilities. It's our responsibility to guide people from where they are today to the expectations of tomorrow. That requires patience, honest feedback, and sometimes hard decisions to set someone back so that they can build stronger foundations. Compassion without standards leads to mediocrity, but standards without compassion create burnout. True leadership demands both. Taken together, these perspectives reminds us that leadership is not just one-dimensional skills, but a balancing act. Empathy and strength, respect and inclusion, compassion and accountability. Leaders who combine these elements create an environment where people are valued, where expectations are clear, and where both individuals and organizations can thrive.
Yeah, and for my interviews, I started with Kenneth. I would describe Kenneth as an adaptive and empathetic leader. He really tends to tailor his approach to the needs of others. Kenneth's been in his role now as tax director for 3 years. And he said whenever he first started with our company, he really wanted to create a strong, positive relationship with his direct reports, which were my manager of property accounting and our tax manager. He said it was important to him that he shapes his leadership style more so to theirs rather than making them conform to the way that he likes to lead. In his experience, he's gotten better buy-in when there's a give and take relationship. So once he was comfortable with his relationship with his managers, he began forming his relationships with the employees under his managers as well. He started these relationships by introducing annual skip level meetings with us and by getting out of his office to interact with all the employees. So he said it was easy to kind of just sit in his office and hole up and only come out whenever you need something. But a lot of times that creates a bad image for someone in authority because Before too long, employees start to just associate you with more work and questions rather than being a person they genuinely enjoy being around. He said he likes to create this more casual relationship, not only because it creates a more enjoyable workspace, but he said it comes with a lot of managerial benefits as well. When you've created a better, more trusting relationship with others, he said it was easier for employees to open up and be honest about their goals. And I find that true whenever I meet with him and have these kind of conversations as well. He said this really helps him identify potential leaders within our organization and also get honest dialogue going so that he can better find growth opportunities for individuals and find areas they're passionate about and want to learn and grow more in. With Trevor, he was kind of in a different situation. So he's new to his supervisory role. He's only been the supervisor of financial planning and analysis for about 9 months now. Trevor really tends to focus on teaching by example and using a more hands-on approach in guiding his employees. He tends to be very transparent with his employees on his own abilities and isn't afraid to tell them when he's ignorant on a subject because he thinks that being vulnerable allows for people to be more open with him in return. Trevor said he doesn't think leadership is innate, but rather it's about an individual's willingness to want to lead. If someone prefers to work on their own development and doesn't really find joy in helping others grow, he doesn't think that's a bad thing, but he said it might be an indicator that individuals are better suited to be an individual contributor rather than a leader. So, Steve has been in various leadership roles now for 25 years, and during that time, he said his leadership style has changed a lot. In his career, early on, he was much more worried about making sure his team was always successful, and he put a lot of stress on himself to be perfect. He said while this stress created a competitive and productive work environment, it inevitably drained him and his coworkers and led to lots of burnout. Throughout his career, he's become more comfortable with failure, and he said that he had to face the fact that sometimes situations won't be perfect, but that failure is where we learn and grow. So over the years, Steve has become a more of a coach and a mentor for his team members and is much more hands off. In our interview, he said there's only so much that one individual can do, and that you eventually have to learn to trust others in order to reach a team's full potential. One of the common themes that I kind of noticed throughout my interviews was that trust was vital in creating a strong team. Good leaders seem to require and create relationships centered on trust and honesty in order to help their team grow, both individually and collectively. So that was kind of what I got out of my interviews.
Yeah, so I interviewed three people from the banking industry, Becky, Will, and Brittany. They're all within the private bank division of MidFirst. One in Tulsa, one in Dallas, and then one, she's in Arizona, but she is over all of the departments. So um, when I interviewed Becky, kind of the things I that stood out to me is she was more of a directive. Her leadership style was more directive when she first started out, but has now kind of evolved over time to this more collaborative and adaptive style of leadership. Um, she kind of looks for leaders that have different qualities than she does. She doesn't want just copycats of her. So she's kind of looking for more diverse um, skill sets to really maximize leadership opportunities there. And she kind of measured her success not just on the numbers produced of sales or anything like that, more of having a good team culture. And so having that good team culture, she feels is a direct reflection on herself, and helps the team produce. Um, so she actually found that leadership development was her favorite part of her job. She has a lot to do, so that was very interesting to me. Kind of on a different note, Will, he's the same position but over the Dallas market, and he's a man or a producing manager, so he's also out there selling, so he can kind of relate to his employees directly because he knows exactly what's going on in the day-to-day life. His leadership style kind of emphasized the real-time coaching aspect, and he wasn't necessarily like, oh, let's meet, every 6 months for your semi-annual review. It was, hey, let's touch base this week and see what's going on, how I can help you, and what issues you're facing. His measurements of success were pretty similar to Becky's, but he obviously was focusing on the production results, the numbers, but he's really looking for personal growth for that person. So he said that the personal growth side of it was a lot more fulfilling. Seeing somebody gain the confidence and learn the procedure was more fulfilling to him than the numbers. Um, then the last person I interviewed was Brittany. She's the managing director of all of private banks, so she manages every department MidFirst has. And her leadership style was kind of just setting the example. She said she wanted people to look at her and reflect her style of leadership. Um, she actually shared a story on emphasizing ability to make quick decisions, especially when you don't have all the information. Is she's got so much going on, she has to approve credit memos. She has to meet with all these directors of their markets and learn their markets. And she was talking about how there was a guy whose birthday was in the office, and she spent a ton of time trying to figure out what to get him for his birthday, order food, and it became this whole process. And she shared with me that even people who have done it for a long time still struggle to try to make quick decisions effectively. Um, and then her measurement of success was more on, it kind of differed from market to market. She's more focused on, how do people grow? And obviously there's a difference between a Tulsa, a Dallas, a Phoenix. So there's different measurements there. But kind of the overall arcing theme was leadership at an individual level, and how it changes per person, and not just focusing on the numbers, really diving into how can we help somebody grow.
So all three of the leaders that I interviewed work in the manufacturing industry. Ryan, who is a plant manager, Kevin is a director of continuous improvement in the food and beverage sector, and Dan is an engineering and maintenance manager for a heat exchanger manufacturer. Each of the three I've had the pleasure of reporting to at various different points in my career. Ryan's leadership style was self-described as a questioning type leader, but I think I would consider it more inquisitive, as he tends to lead with questions in order to get his employees to think critically about certain situations. When it comes to evaluating future leaders or potential leaders, Ryan looks for qualities like persistence, curiosity, emotional intelligence, and things like that as key indicators that could serve as a strong foundation for someone looking to move into a leadership type position. Similar to Ryan, Kevin described himself as a Socratic leader because he too prefers to lead with questions, asking questions rather than providing direct answers. And both of them really believe that this leads to fostering deeper engagement and development within their own teams. When asked how Kevin evaluates his team for potential leaders or individuals that might want to move into a leadership position, the qualities that he looks for are humility, curiosity, and a willingness to embrace change. So Ryan and Kevin are quite similar in their leadership styles. Dan was sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum. With a strong engineering background, Dan is definitely a doer. He has a pretty heavy bias for action and tends to be more to the point, direct, emphasizing clear and direct communication with his team members. Dan looks for leaders that tend to step up to the plate and take the initiative on new challenges. But like Kevin, he values those that seek out change and continuous improvement opportunities. So really, while each of these three operate with their own unique leadership style, they all agree that a one-size-fits-all type approach to leadership is just generally ineffective. They place a big importance on tailoring their leadership styles to the employee that they're working with.
Yeah, and to build off of Stephen's interviews, we found that there was probably 3 or so overarching similarities between all the 12 people we interviewed. That was adaptability and a tailored approach to leadership, kind of as Stephen just said. It's not a one size fits all. Everyone that we interviewed was emphasized more of an adaptive style of leadership to the individual and not just one style for their whole department. And then making it human centered. So just really being able to connect with somebody on a human level and be able to help with their needs and lead them individually. The second similarity was we found that they were all committed to developing others. So they all believe that identifying and developing future leaders is a core responsibility of management. It was a key measure to their own success. For me, one of my interviewees, Becky, she said that was the best part of her job. So, um, and then they all seek out qualities in others and invest time into resources into growth per person. Um, then the third thing we found was the importance of communication and transparency, just setting an environment that has open and honest communication. And then they emphasize the importance of explaining the why behind decisions so that everyone's on the same page. Um, Again, they're fostering an open environment where mistakes can be discussed without fear, and then also providing feedback. Kind of how we've talked in class, the avoidance of that Abilene paradox. So everyone's not just agreeing with everyone else. There's actual open discussions for improvement and change.
Yeah, so although our team identified quite a few similarities, it was also really interesting to see some of the different ways that leaders approached the same set of questions. So, for example, one of the questions we asked was, how do you handle situations where you must make decisions with incomplete or conflicting information? And in my interviews alone, I received 3 distinct answers for these questions. So, it was kind of fun to hear when reading through the notes that there were a lot of different ways that not only did these leaders answer the questions, but also how they seemed to interpret the questions as well. So to start, you had Steve who answered the questions really similar to Becky. It seemed they both like to approach this decision-making style with a lot of intuition and gut instinct, and they seemed to view this intuition as a valuable asset to their skill set that they've gained over time. So in those moments of uncertainty, they kind of lean on their past experience to make those decisions. Kenneth and Ryan, on the other hand, they're perhaps more analytical in the way that they go about their decision-making process. They both seem to focus on what could go wrong, what kind of the worst case scenario would look like, and work back from there. So they like to mitigate risk where they can, but they also look at kind of the best possible outcomes and weigh those worst case scenarios against them. Trevor, on the other hand, he had kind of a unique perspective, in my opinion. He said that he's not afraid to inform individuals that his opinion is subject to change. He talked a lot about how a lot of times we have to make the best decision possible in the moment, but that it's good to be transparent with others that sometimes we don't have all the facts yet, and we're just having to do the best we can, and that it's okay to change our mind as time goes on.
When it comes to core metrics and indicators of individual leadership success, we found that each of these leaders has varying priorities and what defines a truly successful leader. So Becky, Steve, and Brittany all believe that success is pretty strongly tied to team culture, trust, and just overall organizational well-being. This indicates more of a big picture strategic type focus where these leaders see their role as stewarding the entire organization's long-term viability. Kenneth and Ryan, on the other hand, measure their success by evaluating the growth and career progression of their employees. Ryan himself mentioned that he could call himself a truly successful leader if his business was able to run without him being present. Will and Jason sort of had a balanced approach to measuring their success, incorporating a little bit of both from the previous 2 points. They view success as something like a dual achievement process requiring both robust organizational performance and personal and professional growth of their team members. They don't necessarily see one without the other. We also asked each of these leaders about how they align their individual team's goals with the organization's overall vision and strategy. And again, the responses were quite varied, but there were a few overarching themes. Several of the leaders tend to focus on how to translate top-level vision into more actionable team goals using specific tools. Like in Kevin's case, he prefers the objectives and key results framework, which is very structured approach to handle it. It's actually quite similar to Ryan and Trevor, who prefer the X matrix. These tools just offer a systematic way to ensure that every team's efforts effectively contribute to the overall company strategy. Kenneth approaches it a bit differently, so he likes to align his goals through regular check-ins and flexible goal setting. This approach is less about a more rigid annual plan like the OKR X matrix framework, and more about continuous dialogue and adaptation.
Yeah, so that kind of concludes our analysis on the various leaders that we had the opportunity to interview over the course of this class. I think I can speak for all 4 of us when I say that we got a lot out of these interviews and gained a lot of insight into what it means to be an effective leader. So with that, I just want to thank you for taking the time to watch our presentation and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.